It's time now for a look at the day's top business news with Brian Quinn. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Karis.
You're starting in the EU, where top officials are seeking a trade reset with China.
So EU Trade Commissioner Maros Šefčovič met with Chinese Commerce Secretary Wang Wentao Monday in Brussels. Tensions have been rising between the two economies recently as a flood of heavily subsidized Chinese exports presents what European officials see as an existential threat to the continent's industrial base. A recent report by the OECD estimates that Chinese industries have received 3 to 8 times as much state support as their European competitors in recent years. The result, a European trade deficit with China that hit 360 billion euros last year. To reduce that, Brussels is considering new higher tariffs on Chinese imports. Brussels also growing quite worried about European firms' dependence on China for materials like semiconductors and rare earth minerals, with plans to compel EU companies to diversify their suppliers. Now, previous European efforts to confront China's industrial dominance have met with resistance from Germany in particular, which saw China as a crucial market for its automotive industry. That situation, too, is changing as increasingly advanced Chinese electric vehicles are now outselling German cars there. For all its grievances, Brussels remains keen to avoid an all-out trade war that would further batter the bloc's already sluggish economy. The two sides have set an October deadline to reach tangible results on trade disagreements. Here's Šefčovič.
Export to the EU keep rising, while our market share in China keeps shrinking. And this trend is not sustainable, and the status quo is not an option. The EU remains open for business, but we need to defend our industrial base and keep pushing for a level playing field globally so our industries get a fair shot at competing.
To Portugal next, Brian, where the European Central Bank is holding its annual forum amid a daunting economic backdrop.
So we can agree there's been no shortage of crises facing the European economy recently, from the war in Ukraine to American tariffs to a new energy shock from war in Iran. ECB Chief Christine Lagarde, though, says the Eurozone is looking reassuringly resilient, a resilience which should allow the bank to raise interest rates gradually when necessary to fight inflation. For a decade now, the bank has been using less conventional tools like government bond buying and emergency lending on a huge scale to prop up struggling states. It also hiked rates by record levels as natural gas prices spiked in the wake of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine back in 2022. And Lagarde says that era of ECB intervention is now over, insisting that its quarter-point hike earlier this month was not simply insurance against possible inflation, but necessary to push back on real inflation that hit 3.2% in May. Still, she expressed confidence that Europe's economy can now absorb shocks without the bank going into crisis mode. Let's take a listen here.
The euro area has also weathered the largest US tariff increase in almost a century, as well as what the International Energy Agency has called the largest oil supply disruption in history. That didn't go without a significant cost. It has been substantial, but the economy has not been derailed.
All right, Brian, walk us through what we're seeing on the markets today.
So crude oil prices mostly staying steady around $72 a barrel as the U.S. and Iran get set for a new round of peace negotiations. Over on the Asian stock markets, it's been a mixed picture Tuesday, following a new record high close for the Dow on Wall Street. The Nikkei in Tokyo up more than 1.5% as the yen hits a 40-year low. That is good news for Japanese exporters, but troubling for Bank of Japan officials who say they may soon have to intervene on currency markets. Chinese factory activity rose faster than expected in June. Shanghai is up. Hong Kong, though, in the red by a full percent. Here in Europe, markets opening in positive territory following Wall Street's lead. The DAX in Frankfurt up around 0.8%. Paris and London each up 0.25% at the open.
All right, and finally, for business, France's recent brutal heat wave was not only deadly, but it's also set to cost consumers at the grocery store.
So, Kara says we know at least 1,000 people tragically believed to have lost their lives due to last week's heat wave. That tragedy now set to be compounded by economic pain as the country's agricultural sector has already taken a major hit. From tomatoes cooked on the vine to scorched cereal crops, man-made climate change is already causing serious damage to farm production, with shoppers likely to pay the price at the checkout aisle in the coming months. Our colleagues at France Télévisions and Elitsa Gadeva have the details.
The heat wave has devastated these farmers' crops.
Last week, temperatures in this greenhouse were around 60 degrees.
Although they look intact, her tomatoes are actually burnt. Normally, the skin shouldn't peel off, but now it does. That makes them unsellable. She could lose up to half her production, or around 150,000 euros. Prices usually drop for the summer season, but not this year.
This year, we won't be lowering the prices because that will allow us to get back at least some of what we lost.
Tomatoes are more expensive at the farm, and that higher price is showing up on supermarket shelves. Major retailers warn that lettuce, radish and even melon prices could also jump in the coming days. And it's not just a temporary high. These prices could be here to stay. The heat has also hammered cereal crops. Take corn, for example. Its price has soared. Before the heat wave, 1 ton sold for 203 euros, while today it's 225 euros. And corn is essential for feeding livestock. The rise could therefore have an effect on meat prices.
At this stage, farmers who use corn will have to pay more for it. As a consequence, this may lead to an increase in production costs for farmers. But for the moment, the final consumer hasn't felt the rise.
But by the end of the year, customers in France might start paying more for meat as well.
Agriculture, of course, a very important sector for the French economy, as well as tourism and construction, all of which hit by that recent heat wave. Karis.
All right, Brian, thank you very much for that business update.